Welcome to Victorian England, where cocaine wasn't scandalous. It was practically a food group. It swirled in your tea, sparkled in your toothpaste, shaped your parenting, and occasionally tingled in your pores. Doctors handed it out like after-dinner mints, and everyone's left eyebrow twitched in agreement. This is the tale of how an entire country got gloriously blitzed on cocaine while sipping tea, standing up straight, and politely judging each other's curtains. If elegant addictions and powdered remedies help you drift into sleep, stay close. This is History to Sleep, your nightly visit to the strange, the lovely, and the lace-trimmed absurdities of the 19th century. Let us know where you're listening from, and what time it is. There's something oddly comforting about knowing we're all falling asleep to powdered delusion and perfect posture. You weren't trying to start a new habit. Truly, you just wanted to unwind. The day had been long. Your piano instructor had been particularly stern. The neighbor's horse sneezed directly onto your crinoline, and your husband spent the afternoon dramatically sighing near the window, waiting for someone to ask about his nerves. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let yourself float gently into a time when being cheerful, calm, and slightly cocaine-charged was just good manners. So when the chemist handed you a chilled glass of something called Coca-Cola, a temperance tonic, he said, you gladly accepted. You needed this. He promised it was non-alcoholic, uplifting, calming, excellent for digestion, and apparently praised by the Pope, Thomas Edison, and someone's aunt who hadn't blinked since spring. You glance at the chemist, blinking rapidly. The first sip is smooth, sweet, a little citrus, a touch of spice. The second sip has a deeper note. By the third, your entire skeleton begins to hum. Your jaw is grinding like a pepper mill. Your shoulders are dancing independently, and you've developed a sudden interest in both the Crimean War and brass doorknobs. You feel more alive than ever, and mildly suspicious of wallpaper. Oh, quite safe. Just coca leaves and cola nut. What exactly is in this? He smiles, reassuring. You pause. Trace amounts, he says smoothly. Hardly any at all. Just enough to get the blood flowing, clear the sinuses, awaken the organs, lift the spirit, and maybe forget your own name by dinner. Coca, as in cocaine. You nod slowly. You're now 3 sips past caution, and 2 minutes from founding a spiritual movement. Coca-Cola, as it turns out, was created by a wounded Confederate veteran with a morphine issue. Of course it was. Dr. John Pemberton, pharmacist and amateur swordsman, had what genteel Victorians might call a chemical inconvenience. So naturally, he tried to fix it by replacing morphine with a fizzy beverage laced with cocaine. His first attempt? A copycat drink called Pemberton's French wine coca, modeled after a popular French tonic made of Bordeaux wine and Peruvian coca leaves. It was a sensation. And yes, even the Pope loved it. Emergencies required preparation. Sometimes that preparation was wine and cocaine. But in 1886, temperance laws rolled into Atlanta, banning alcohol and sending wine-based tonics into exile. Pemberton, ever the opportunist, simply swapped the wine for sugar syrup, carbonated the whole thing, and created a new temperance drink that still happened to contain cocaine. It was like removing the dynamite from a cannon and replacing it with sparklers. Still explosive, just with bubble. Thomas Edison drank it. Sherlock Holmes probably drank it. Women in corsets definitely drank it. Then immediately regretted the lack of lung space for all the extra adrenaline. Each glass held a small but meaningful touch of cocaine. He called it Coca-Cola, a brain tonic, a nerve reviver. Early ads claimed it could cure fatigue, headaches, gloom, indigestion, shyness, possibly ghosts. It was served at pharmacies and soda counters all across America. People came in tired and walked out ready to resurface the roof, memorize Homer, and finally confront their cousin Bernard. The public version lost the cocaine by 1903. The private version not until 1929. And even now, the formula still uses coca leaves, just decocainized, processed under close watch, somewhere in New Jersey. But none of that really matters right now. You're 3 glasses in, waving an imaginary baton in the parlor, composing blueprints for a steam-powered sewing machine that also critiques poetry. You've cured your own sciatica by spinning in a circle and shouting, "I'm unstoppable," into the gaslight. And just as you begin to settle, the chemist returns, cradling something new, a bottle of red wine, gold label shimmering. with a nod of approval from the Pope himself. You smile. What could possibly go wrong with a little wine and a hint of something extra? You take a sip. It's smooth, warm, and faintly spiced, like drinking ambition aged in a monastery. It's just wine, you tell yourself, as the chemist uncorks the bottle and pours you a generous Victorian glass, which is roughly the size of a modern cereal bowl. The label reads Vin Mariani, and the foil insists it's endorsed by the Pope, the President of France, and at least one world-renowned magician. By the second sip, you've forgotten your worries. By the third, you're reciting Shakespeare backward and alphabetizing the chemist's shelves by emotional tone. You are now thoroughly convinced of your own brilliance. You feel as though you might levitate, if not fly, especially when standing near patterned wallpaper. I feel magnificent, you announce. Vin Mariani was the Red Bull of the Victorian age, if Red Bull came with a rosary and medical recommendation. Invented in 1863 by Angelo Mariani, a Parisian chemist who looked at a glass of wine and thought, "This needs more instability." The chemist nods gravely. "Yes," he replies, "that would be the cocaine." He combined fine Bordeaux with coca leaves from Peru which, when soaked in ethanol, released pure, potent alkaloids. The result? A drink with all the elegance of a dinner party and the emotional force of a rocket launch. Each glass carried roughly 21 milligrams of cocaine. But this wasn't some backroom elixir. This was the drink. Vin Mariani was endorsed by Jules Verne, Thomas Edison, Queen Victoria's personal physicians, and yes, Pope Leo XIII, who loved it so much he awarded it a gold Vatican medal and allegedly kept a flask on him for spiritual emergencies. The suggested dose? 3 glasses a day, or, in modern terms, absolutely not. You're pouring your second glass of Vin Mariani when the candlelight starts to shimmer, or maybe the walls are applauding. You're not entirely sure. Your hat suddenly feels inspiring. "I've got something new," he says. You hum hymns to a spider in the corner, overwhelmed with ideas, most of them wildly impractical but undeniably grand, and just as you begin sketching a hot air balloon shaped like Queen Victoria's profile, the chemist taps the counter. You turn, wide-eyed. "More wine?" He leans in. "Better. Tablet form." You gasp. He nods, solemn. "Used by explorers. Arctic one." Of course you take the entire bottle. You're not embarking on an expedition. You're just going to the market. You need a cucumber, shoe polish, and perhaps revenge. But your twitchy, trusted chemist insists these pills are necessary. "Try these," he whispers, placing a glass bottle in your palm. "For endurance," he says. Very popular with the Arctic crowd. Inside, several chalky tablets embossed with a lightning bolt. The label reads, "Forced Mark." You don't question it. You swallow one. Nothing. You swallow another. Suddenly, you are no longer a tired Victorian with cabbage breath. You are momentum incarnate, a creature of snow and purpose. You've never climbed anything in your life, but you are now certain you could summit a cathedral and possibly bless the weather while you're up there. You sprint from the chemist's without paying. You no longer want cucumbers. You want crampons. You want glory. 10 minutes later, you've reached the market, reorganized the produce by continent, and convinced 3 strangers to join your expedition to the South Pole. In reality, you weren't the only one pacing dramatically in wool trousers. Cocaine tablets, especially the Forced March brand, were genuinely used by Victorian explorers. Men like Ernest Shackleton, Captain Scott, and Dr. Frederick Cook swore by them during brutal polar treks, because nothing says well prepared like crossing Antarctica with narcotics and blind optimism. Some credited them with survival. Others were found grinning shirtless mid-snowdrift, halfway through inventing a new calendar. These pills were marketed as heroic stimulants, endurance for soldiers, cyclists, and anyone facing wind or existential dread. They were sold in chemist shops, packed into military kits, and praised in memoirs. One explorer wrote they delivered warmth, clarity, and forward motion, which is poetic considering they were just compressed cocaine and courage. You pop one last tablet. There's hygiene to attend to. Back in the market, you've just climbed a stack of turnips and declared yourself governor of produce. You're drenched in sweat. You've crafted a makeshift flag out of celery and a meat receipt. And just as you prepare to march home in triumph, it hits you. You forgot to brush your teeth this morning. Luckily, the chemist mentioned something earlier. Something about coca leaves, tongue fur, and morning rituals. You wake up on the floor. This feels familiar. You suspect you got there with style. Your boots are somehow on the bookshelf. Your hair smells faintly of parsley. You have a vague memory of shouting South Pole or bust at the vicar's cat. You sit up slowly. Your pulse is performing a drum solo in your ears. Your mouth feels like you've been licking coal. Your tongue is dry, slightly furry, and based on a quick glance in the mirror, possibly developing its own opinions. This will not do. You need something cleansing, something herbal, something French. You pour a few drops onto your toothbrush and scrub your teeth, your gums, and possibly your soul. The result is instant. Fortunately, the chemist left you with a tiny vial labeled Morning Revore for tongue fur, flatulence, and spiritual hesitation. Perfect. You can taste sound. Your tongue feels like it's been reborn as an energetic reptile. You let out a startled yelp, not from pain, but because the clock ticked and caught you off guard. You slap the towel rack just in case, then declare the bathroom secure. You are ready to face the day, or challenge it to a duel. Let's talk about the Victorian cocaine-powered morning routine. Between the 1870s and 1890s, physicians across Europe, including Italian anthropologist and noted eccentric Dr. Paolo Mantegazza, praised coca leaf products as the answer to morning woes. Mantegazza claimed coca could cure a furred tongue, banish gas, elevate moods, and generally make you more tolerable to those around you. Rinsing the mouth with coca infusions became common practice, especially in homes where no one questioned why their toothpaste made them want to organize cutlery. And the results? Bright teeth, sharper nerves, and absolutely no tolerance for wallpaper imperfections. Back in the bathroom, your teeth sparkle. The towel rack is calm. You've made peace with your reflection, more or less. You're radiant. Your tongue feels like a polished stone, but something still isn't right. You lean closer to the mirror. Your eyelashes. Too modest? Too respectable? The kind of lashes worn by librarians and people who go to bed on time. You want drama. You want lashes that flutter with intent, that stir the air slightly when you blink. You snap your fingers. You need a needle. And more cocaine. You're about to upgrade your face. Your teeth shine like factory-finished marble. Your tongue is a symphony of clarity. You've survived yourself, your reflection, and a suspicious dust mote. You are magnificent. But your lashes? Tragic. You look at the sewing kit, then the bottle of cocaine eye drops, then the mirror. Then you remember the chemist's casual mention, half whisper, half warning. Numb the eyelids with a cocaine tincture. Stitch in lashes. Very chic, very French. Moments later, your face becomes a project. It sounds like a terrible idea. That's because it is. But in the 1890s, it was also quite real. Your eyelids are numb. Your hands are steady. Thanks, cocaine. You hold a needle and a tuft of human hair. Maybe yours, maybe not. You blink once, then begin. Victorian beauty trends were ambitious. Women routinely applied lead-based powder, swallowed arsenic wafers for a glow, and corseted their waists until ribs protested in Morse code. So when someone suggested stitching in false lashes under the influence of cocaine, the public response was not, absolutely not, but rather, is it discounted for both eyes? Beauty columns and salon gossip soon described the procedure in glowing terms, a way to enhance allure without powder or paint. Translation: likely hallucinate while conducting eye surgery on yourself. The method was simple. Apply a cocaine solution to numb the upper eyelid. Thread a needle with human hair, or horsehair if you were feeling bold. Stitch the strands directly into the edge of the eyelid. Sit still, hope for the best. These weren't done in clinics. They were done in back rooms and salons by women with names like Madame Lucienne or Miss Violet, whose qualifications included strong opinions on perfume and excellent hat posture. There are no records of how many blinked mid-procedure and ended up with diagonal depth perception. But based on Victorian standards, the answer is too many. You're stunning, your lashes whisper secrets, your skin hums with newfound purpose. You've stared down your reflection, your towel rack, and the ghost of insecurity that lives in your wallpaper, and you've won. For those who succeeded, the result was mesmerizing. One eye might tilt east, the other salute the queen, but both screamed confidence stitched together by willpower and stimulants. You grab your parasol, powdered gloves, and one last dab of nose refresher from a little red tin labeled sniff tonic for hay fever and moral exhaustion. But you're late for tea. You take a sniff. The world tilts ever so slightly. Your sinuses open like cathedral doors. Your confidence rises. You're definitely ready for polite society now. You are trying to behave. It's a sunny afternoon. The lilies are in bloom. A string quartet plays something elegant and entirely forgettable. Your corset is sculpting entire constellations into your ribcage. You need something. Not a conversation, an intervention. A resurrection. A chemical revival. And Lady Mudgeworth has trapped you near the lemonade table to describe in excruciating detail her recent hysteria diagnosis and her firm belief that her sofa is possessed. You smile. You nod. You die a little inside. You cough delicately, excuse yourself with the grace of a stage actress, and slip behind a topiary shaped like a startled goose. From your handbag, salvation, a cocaine cigarette. It's marketed for hay fever, fatigue, asthma, and general Victorian despair. The label promises instant relief and moral restoration. You don't know what that means, but you strike a match anyway. One puff, and your sinuses swing open like ballroom doors. Your lungs tingle, your soul briefly exits, cartwheels through the ether, and re-enters wearing better gloves and a more optimistic outlook. Puff 2. You forgive your mother. Puff 3. You've solved the wallpaper bubble in the drawing room, and composed a light operetta titled The Duchess and the Fern. You are reborn. Victorians adored their cocaine cigarettes, and honestly, it's hard to blame them. They were elegant, widely available, and absolutely unhinged. Pharmacists sold them in tins with charming names like Qatar, cleansing cigarettes, cocaine lozenges for the nose, mentholated clarity sticks. Brands like Allen and Hanbury's claimed they soothed hay fever, migraines, shyness, and the creeping realization that your fiancé collects beetles. The string quartet plays on. You step out from behind the goose, radiant and unbothered. You've returned not just to the garden, but to yourself. Perfectly pressed, ever so slightly trembling, and absolutely ready to discuss ghost furniture. And they worked at least long enough to survive tea with Lady Mudgeworth. It was entirely acceptable to stand in your drawing room, inhale a puff of bottled assurance, and chase it down with tea and a touch of casual mania. And they weren't some hidden vice. No, these were on display at any respectable pharmacy, right next to the licorice bark and the tablets that made you temporarily Italian. They were backed by physicians, praised by opera singers, and adored by that one aunt who never took off her pearls, even in the bath. Eased my breathing, soothed my nerves, reminded me why I ever said yes to Geoffrey. Approved by 7 out of 4 barbers, periodicals in the Victorian era gushed. Warning labels didn't exist. Only elegant sketches of women breathing in enlightenment like it might lift them gently out of their corsets. Cleared my lungs and made me reconsider time as a concept. Each cigarette offered a fresh dose of laboratory-grade cocaine, occasionally blended with opium, menthol, or the sheer courage of the era. Behind the hedge now, you're experiencing full nasal clarity, gentle elation, and an overwhelming urge to alphabetize your silverware by emotional intensity. You flick your cigarette into the hydrangeas, exhale insight, and stroll onto the lawn, as though you've just inherited a title. Lady Thistlewood approaches. You're ready. Just as you bow, your chemist arrives. He's holding a velvet case. You open it. You launch into a 9-minute speech about the emotional implications of velvet-trimmed teaspoons. By the end, 2 people are clapping, and someone has fainted respectfully. He nods, gravely. Inside, a polished syringe, and a label that reads, "For fatigue, sorrow, and light dueling." One eyebrow lifts. Shall we? Normally you prefer your remedies in more respectable forms. Drops, tablets, maybe a faintly suspicious cordial that promises to revive one's feminine spirit. But today is different. You are depleted in body, in soul, in hairline. You've just endured a 6-hour monologue from Cousin Winifred about her curtains, and you are 82% certain you briefly ceased to exist. So when your chemist appears, cradling velvet and a solution, and asks, "Would you like a revitalizing injection?" you don't question him. You nod once, roll up your sleeve and whisper, "Make it poetic." "Oh, we shall," you say. Cocaine injections weren't some rogue experiment. They were a widely embraced solution in late Victorian medicine. Once doctors discovered that cocaine could be dissolved in water and injected straight into the bloodstream, all medical restraint was cast into the Thames. Suddenly, everything was a valid reason for injection: exhaustion, indigestion, mild social fear, spiritual unease, or a particularly long carriage ride. He opens the box. Inside, a gleaming syringe and a delicate glass vial marked liquid concentrated cocaine for energy, resilience, and difficult chats with antique furniture. He taps the syringe gently. You ask if he's licensed. He tilts his head. I was mistaken for a surgeon on a ferry once. Close enough. He injects your arm. What follows is difficult to explain, but the term divine lightning bolt to the personality comes close. Your spine straightens, your eyes sharpen, your inner clarity dusts itself off, and begins rearranging your internal priorities alphabetically. You are radiant, you are recharged, you are vibrating at a frequency reserved for genius and minor earthquakes. In the 1880s and 1890s, you could simply walk into a pharmacy and buy a kit, no prescription needed, just a coin, a nod, and you walked out prepared to become your most energized and mildly alarming self. They were marketed as a cure for morphine withdrawal. Yes, they treated addiction with stronger addiction, also for nervous exhaustion, digestive troubles, melancholia in career women. You could purchase preloaded syringes, sealed ampules, even monthly subscription kits, delivered straight to your home. Some women kept them tucked discreetly in the vanity drawer next to their eyebrow pencils and social regrets. You know, for those days when reorganizing the spice rack suddenly felt like destiny. Back in your sitting room, you've just injected yourself with enough concentrated optimism to power a telegraph office. You've rewritten your will in flawless rhyme, drafted a love sonnet to Queen Victoria's eyebrows, and mended 2 family feuds using only aggressive embroidery. You are dazzling, unstoppable, possibly immortal. Then, in a moment of triumph, you catch your reflection in the mirror, and you freeze. You reach for your powder compact, but no. Powder is for amateurs. You need something bolder. Scientific, transformational. It's not your eyes, they're luminous. Not your skin, it's practically glowing with purpose. No. It's your hair. Flat, lifeless, emotionally discouraged. Your curls are slumping like they've seen things they cannot unsee. Your part has begun a quiet rebellion and is drifting west. Your excellence demands more. You stand in your dressing gown like a general preparing for war. Your hair is not gone. It's simply withdrawn emotionally. One side has surrendered. The other is trying to disappear into your collar. This will not do. There, on the vanity, a cobalt blue bottle labeled Dr. Everly's Capillary Formula for listless follicles and fading ambition, with added cocaine. You unscrew the cap. It smells like peppermint, misplaced hope, and a faint threat of combustion. You smile. Tonight, you will rise, with volume. You uncork the bottle. Dr. Everly's tonic for weak-willed hair. Now with cocaine, camphor, and dreams of a better future. It smells like fresh regret and peppermint defiance. You tilt your head. You pour. Victorian hair products were an unhinged storm of promise and ingredients, no one regulated. Cocaine was common in these tonics, often bottled with names like Professor Eldridge's Follicle Elixir, Miss Lavinia's Growth Syrup, or Madame Penelope's Vibrational Scalp Enhancer. It hits your scalp like a hymn screamed by a soprano inside a brass kettle. You are immediately, violently awake. Your follicles erupt with purpose. Your eyebrows attempt to retreat. Your sideburns issue formal complaints. Within moments, it begins. The tingling, loud, enthusiastic, unregulated tingling. You begin pacing, planning, developing personality traits you didn't previously possess. This is no longer hair care. This is rebirth. You didn't just grow hair. You grew certainty, volume, the confidence to argue with wallpaper. Back in your room, your scalp is so energized it's practically broadcasting in Morse code. You run a brush through your hair. It sparks. Your curls stand to attention. You whisper, "You are the gale," to your reflection. They promise to restore thinning hair, cure dandruff, stimulate thought, and prevent your soul from leaking through your scalp. Some formulas included cocaine, camphor, ammonia, borax, and something simply labeled activation serum. Pamphlets assured users that after 3 applications, their scalps felt alive, responsive, and fit for polite society. No one hears you, but the mirror nods in agreement. You fling open the window and declare to no one in particular, "I am glorious, and I demand to be acknowledged." A neighbor applauds. Just as you turn to celebrate with a victory waltz, your chemist reappears. He's holding a pale pink bottle. "For your nerves," he says casually. You nod. Of course. It's time to fine-tune your personality. Today you are trying to be soft. That's what the etiquette guide suggested. A woman must float, not stomp. You attempt a gentle drift. You immediately fail. You stomp. You stomp. To the tea tray. You stomp to the parlor. You stomp straight into a vivid flashback from... Your nerves are not delicate. They are armed, volatile, and probably unionizing. So you do what any highly strung Victorian lady would do. You reach for your nerve tonic. The bottle is glass, soft pink, with embossed lettering, and a ribbon around the neck. It reads, Madame Lavona's elixir for feminine equilibrium. With cocaine, valerian, and unwavering certainty. You take a modest sip, then another, then a third. Because it tastes like roses dipped in rebellion. The lace curtains flutter, too fluttery. Your gloves feel like betrayal. Within 90 seconds, you have thoughts. Loud thoughts. So many of them. You rename yourself spiritually. You deliver a 5-minute lecture to the fireplace. You storm upstairs and inform your bedroom. It's no longer emotionally supporting you. You are not soft. You are a revolution. Victorian nerve tonics were marketed to women as gentle, soothing remedies. They were neither. These were concentrated chemical storms in ribboned bottles. Women in the 19th century were regularly diagnosed with mysterious conditions like wandering womb, hysteria, overactive imagination, or most ominously, nerves. These tonics were handed out to women experiencing anything from mood swings to excessive reading. An 1891 ad proudly stated, Madame Lavona's tonic refreshes the soul, sweetens the breath, and pacifies the untamed femininity behind unchaperoned book clubs. The prescribed treatment? Bottled chaos. Tonics were sold under names like Dr. Stanhope's Lady Grace Elixir, Gentlewoman's Resolve Syrup, and Mrs. Flannery's Soothing Compound for mood regulation. The ingredients list often included cocaine, morphine, alcohol, caffeine, and something vague yet sparkly, occasionally gold leaf. Back in your drawing room, your heart is quoting Shakespeare. Your eyebrows are trying to form a labor union. You've renamed your elbows. You speak exclusively in metaphor and dramatic pauses. The maid asks if you're all right. You reply in fluent French. You do not speak French. Did they work? Yes. But not how you'd expect. More in the she hasn't blinked in 6 hours but redesigned the library and solved calculus way. 1 sip and the woman might start writing manifestos. 2, and she's emotionally engaged to a chair. Side effects were rarely printed, but frequently noticed. You excuse yourself politely and walk straight into a houseplant. You need grounding. Something to bring you back from your emotionally over-caffeinated orbit. You need water, a bath, and just in time, your chemist has left behind a new addition to your routine. A bar of soap. The label reads, cocoa soap for skin touched by angels, and also slightly on fire. You grab your towel. It's time to bathe like a myth with unresolved boundaries. You're covered in decisions. They cling to you like silk and unresolved guilt. You've accidentally committed to 3 dinner parties, 2 new obsessions, and a passing goose that stared too intently. You must rinse the day off. You fill the tub, sprinkle floral salts. Add rose oil. Light a candle that smells like generational disappointment. And then, the final touch. You reach for the new miracle on your washstand. Professor Whitaker's cocoa soap for brilliance, balance, and legally untested clarity. It looks like an ordinary bar. It smells like peppermint and prophecy. You lather, instantly. Everything becomes clear. Your pores open. Your scalp sings. A Victorian ghost floats past your window and gives you an approving nod. In the late 19th century, cleanliness was more than hygiene. It was destiny. And often narcotic-laced, Victorian vanities overflowed with hygiene products infused with cocaine, scalp lotions, tooth powders, face creams, and yes, soap. Cocoa soap was advertised not only as a skin cleanser, but as a tool for soul elevation. It invigorated the blood, purified the aura, and allegedly made you capable of organizing a charity ball with nothing but determination and a wet sponge. By the second rinse, your elbows have developed opinions. Your knees recall childhood poetry. The water begins to shimmer with ambition. You are clean. You are transformed. You are gently vibrating. Common ingredients included cocaine, hydrochloride, lanolin, lavender, and enough menthol to make a bear sneeze. It wasn't just bathing, it was a ritual of ascension. Women reported sensations of clarity, courage, slight numbness, and an overwhelming desire to reorganize the guest room by energy flow. One 1887 ad claimed, "For the lady whose beauty feels weary, cocoa soap restores glow to the cheeks and intention to the heart." Another stated, "Its bubbles remove old skin, spiritual clutter, and doubts about your fiancé." Doctors had mixed feelings, mostly because they were using it too. You rise, glowing. You glide toward the mirror, and there, waiting patiently on the shelf, is your final transformation. Back in your bath, you're not just floating, you've achieved buoyancy, peace, and minor telepathy. Your skin feels like rose petals soaked in resolve. Towels are irrelevant now. You air dry using conviction alone. Sitting on the washstand is the final offering from your chemist. A soft pink jar labeled Cocoa Cosmetic Cream for radiance, wrinkle resistance, and unimaginable levels of self-belief. You smirk. The bath cleansed your past. Now it's time to moisturize your destiny. You dip 2 fingers into the jar and scoop out a generous portion of cool floral ambition. You don't check the ingredients. You don't need to. You simply apply it to your face like a Victorian goddess, preparing for a diplomatic war. It tingles, then it buzzes, then it whispers. Your temples pulse. Your nose twitches. Your eyebrows rise up and formally resign. You glance at yourself in the mirror, and you gasp, not out of horror, but readiness. Your skin begins to sing softly. Your forehead achieves order. Your jawline makes plans. Your cheekbones draft a mission statement. You are no longer merely hydrated. You are ascending. You apply more. Why not? Your pores deserve it. They've endured corsets, public disappointment, and last week's spoon-related emotional breakdown at tea. As you massage the cream into your face, the sensation builds, cold and electric, like being kissed by a glacier with a 5-year business strategy. Your reflection nods. It understands, ready to confront your relatives, ready to edit the etiquette manual, ready to become someone who never apologizes for opening a window too decisively. You stare at your reflection and declare, "You are radiant. You are terrifying, and you are definitely going to send a stern letter to Parliament about the emotional labour of managing doilies. You are ready." Victorian cosmetic creams weren't merely about skincare. They were bottled aspirations, ambition in a jar. These creams promised radiance, beauty, and something just shy of immortality. Their ingredients? Usually a cocktail of cocaine, mercury, lead, and confidence born of unchecked colonial ego. There were face balms, night masks, wrinkle pastes, all guaranteed to lift the spirits and blur the consequences. Labels often used words like revitalizing, feminine clarity, and morally firming. One ad claimed, "Apply nightly for dewy skin and diplomatic superiority." Did they work? No, but they made you feel like they did, and that was enough. Back in your dressing room, your skin hums. You exude purpose. Your pores feel vindicated. You are no longer preparing for the day. You are the day. He appears once more, holding a final glass bottle. "For your tranquility," he says. It's shaped like a potion and shimmers faintly in the light. You've moisturized your future. You've achieved a level of personal clarity once reserved for saints and opera divas. Your reflection doesn't blink. It nods once, like a queen accepting destiny. You turn to leave. But your chemist isn't quite done. The label reads, "Madame Lavona's elixir for emotional refinement, with cocaine and the purest of intentions." You nod, of course. It's time to calm down, responsibly. You take a dainty sip, then another, then just a little more, because it tastes like roses, opera, and a hint of divine recklessness. Within moments, the curtains are too roughly. Your shoes feel sarcastic. Your soul begins compiling a list of formal complaints. You declare your new spiritual identity. You recite a sonnet to the mantel clock. You march upstairs and inform the furniture that it has let you down emotionally. You are not peaceful. You are a phenomenon. And then opinions. So many opinions. Victorian nerve elixirs were marketed as gentle restoratives, especially for women. But what they really were controlled explosions in a bottle. These tonics claimed to restore the delicate female constitution, which was apparently under constant threat from reading novels, standing too quickly, or forming independent thoughts. Formulas were branded with names like Dr. Stanwicks Liquid Composure, Lady Eleanor's Temperament Syrup, and Mrs. Featherly's Panic Suspension Tonic, with coca leaf and just a whisper of something celestial. Did they work? Not in the way the ads implied, but absolutely in the sense of, she hasn't sat down in 4 hours, but she did repaint the entire pantry and develop a theory of everything. Main ingredients often included cocaine, morphine, alcohol, caffeine, and an herb, vaguely described as soul-centering. One 1892 ad boasted, Madame Lavona's tonic soothes the spirit, brightens the eyes, and tames the unruly curiosity that leads to independent thinking. 1 teaspoon could ignite a manifesto. 2, and you're emotionally engaged to the curtains. Side effects were rarely printed, but unmistakably observed. Back in your drawing room, your heart is quoting Shakespeare. Your thoughts are arranged alphabetically. Your body is writing poetry in a language no one has taught you. You lock eyes with the mirror once more. You are no longer just awake. You are becoming. They swore they could smooth floors, lift the skin, stir the spirit, and erase emotions considered inconvenient for the face. A real ad from the 1890s once declared, our cocoa balm energizes the skin, brings back youthful glow, and soothes the despair of a woman not properly admired. Another promised a gentle buzz at first touch, one swipe, and your chin might start making plans. These jars were aimed at women with tired expressions, wives worn down by matrimony, and anyone who'd spent too long in the sunlight. Packaged in dainty pots with swan-shaped lids and floral engravings, they looked refined enough to distract from the fact you were gently rubbing high-grade narcotics into your scalp. Doctors sometimes raised an eyebrow about long-term use, but most buyers just smiled and replied, have you seen my complexion? And kept glowing directly into eternity. Back at your vanity, you now resemble a carefully lit warning sign. Your skin radiates confidence. Your lips have plumped themselves out of sheer survival instinct. You grin at the mirror, and it glares back with shared intent. You glide down the stairs like a woman prepared to file an official complaint against a baron. At the bottom, your pharmacist stands waiting. He holds out a tray. On it, a single chocolate truffle. You lift an eyebrow. He gives a slow nod. Infused, he whispers, for the nerves and the sugar withdrawal that comes with spiritual superiority. You take a bite. Oh no, that's not cocoa. That's cocoa. Rich, dreamy, slightly unnerving. You chew with purpose. You are moments from becoming a dessert deity. You've earned this moment. You've moisturized. You've outmaneuvered your own reflection. You've sent 3 silent warnings to your rivals using only facial tension. You deserve a treat. So, you lift the petite pink box from the tray and untie the satin bow like you're disabling an emotional time bomb. Inside, a delicate lineup of confections, each one a sugared whisper of elegance, secrecy, and likely criminal offense. You pop one into your mouth. It tastes like lavender, influence and truths, not meant for daylight. You chew slowly, your eyes widen, your posture corrects itself. You hear something faint and distant, a voice that says only unstoppable. By truffle number 3, you've redecorated the room using intuition and force of will. By number 4, you can interpret wind. At this point you are roughly 82% truffle, 18% foresight. In the Victorian era, cocaine wasn't just medicine, it was dessert, and nowhere did that philosophy shine brighter or more recklessly than in their chocolate. Cocaine-infused chocolates were pitched to women burdened by low spirits, students overwhelmed by their thoughts, and basically anyone with a functioning mouth and a little spare cash. These weren't fringe novelties tucked away in odd shops. No, they were centerpieces in department store. You'd find them in rose, vanilla, mint, or pure ambition. Ads from the 1890s proudly announced, awakens the mind while delighting the tongue, for the busy homemaker, the anxious poet, or the thoroughly unimpressed governor. Some boxes even included helpful dosing advice, 1 for cheer, 2 for stamina, 3 for heightened productivity, 4. Perhaps not best taken during legal discussion. Makers claimed the sweets brightened both thoughts and appearance, which is bold considering they were essentially little gourmet wrecking balls for your entire nervous system. Physicians argued about whether such things belonged near children, which was really just a polite way of asking, at what age is it too soon to hallucinate a goose, quoting Hamlet. Back in your sitting room, the box is empty. You're now hosting tea for 12, despite the fact that no invitations were sent. You're balancing a full silver tray in one hand and dramatically reading your horoscope in rhymed verse. The guests include your coat rack, your maid, and a confused neighbor you dragged in from the hedges. They're listening with reverent attention. Someone claps. You bow, and just as you're about to hand out cucumber sandwiches carved into the shape of your own initials, your chemist leans through the window. He's holding a tiny blue bottle. The label reads, Fogsworth's Anti-Cramp Elixir for Ladies, featuring cocaine, camphor, and some extremely confident promises. He lifts an eyebrow. You give a solemn nod. It's time to discuss cramps. Moments later, your insides feel airborne. Your spine lifts like it just got promoted. Your pupils expand so far you can hear secrets in the rug. You are without pain. You are without time. You are no longer tethered to the calendar or its monthly nonsense. You take another sip, because no woman should face cramps, social etiquette, and a mediocre tea tray while unmedicated. Your uterus sends its gratitude. You nod politely to no one in particular. Today is going to be productive. The pain arrives not gently, not as a suggestion. No, this is full-scale rebellion. It storms in like a goose on absinthe and makes its intentions known with the urgency of flying cutlery. You stop cold, one hand bracing your stomach, the other gripping furniture as if betrayed by your own anatomy. You inhale like someone just publicly criticized your embroidery. Your uterus flips a table. Your ovaries start a movement. Even your corset seems to judge you. You stagger toward the vanity like a woman on a quest, and possibly a small uprising. You yank open the drawer, knocking over 3 eyebrow jars and a sentimental brooch you haven't emotionally unpacked. And there it is, Fogsworth's monthly lady elixir, designed for the inner chaos of a well-accessorized woman, fortified with cocaine, camphor, and sheer willpower. Your hands tremble as you twist the cap. The scent hits first mint, danger, and a vague memory of scandalous poetry. You drink it, quickly, because this is not a game. Ladies' magazines featured glowing testimonials like, after one spoonful, I forgot my uterus and played the pianoforte with both hands and no hesitation. Or, my wife used to cry at floral wallpaper. Now she paints the pantry and recites Latin. Some tonics even came with golden spoons for precise measuring, because if you're going to hallucinate dignity, you may as well do it with flair. Victorian lady tonics were practically a category of their own, designed to cure monthly unrest, rebellious wombs, overthinking during menses, and the ever-persistent condition of being a woman in public. These potions were dosed with cocaine, camphor, alcohol, laudanum, and sometimes instructions like, do not attempt carpentry while spiritually ascending. They vowed to calm cramps, balance moods, restore grace to wayward ovaries, and gently coax your soul back into its physical form. Results, as always, varied. Back in the parlor, you're pain-free, and 3 hours into passionately explaining the feminist symbolism of lace trim to your armchair. You've converted your journal into a manifesto, charted your emotional fluctuations with color-coded accuracy, and made the firm decision to outlaw Tuesdays. You're wearing 3 shawls, none of which you own. Your hair is flawless. Your shoes are spiritually aligned. The maid peeks in. She holds up a pale green tin. You read the label, children's soothing syrup for teething, fussing and excessive opinions. Cocaine endorsed by governesses, wolves and divinity itself. You raise a brow. She gives a solemn nod. You tilt your head. Just a taste. You whisper. For sight. The child is not simply crying, he is wailing like an exorcism caught in a wind tunnel. This isn't a gentle sniffle into a monogrammed sheep print handkerchief. This is full-blown operatic fury, in the key of deranged barn owl. He's teething, he's thrashing, he's launching baked goods with alarming precision. You've attempted everything, rattles, lullabies, bribes, incantations. Nothing works. And then you remember the tin. You dig it from the nursery drawer. It's green and gold, adorned with elegant scrollwork and a cherub, who looks vaguely sedated. The label reads, Mrs. Flindle's Soothing Syrup for Teething, Tantrums and Emotional Storms. Ingredients: cocaine, morphine, alcohol and peace. Victorian parenting wasn't centered around lullabies and gentle routines. It was chemical negotiations in miniature form. Soothing syrups, calming powders, and pacifiers weren't gentle. They were loaded with cocaine, morphine, alcohol, chloroform, and the prevailing attitude of, they'll probably be fine. You could buy them at any shop. No prescription, no warning label, no hint that your child was about to gaze beyond time. Popular brands included Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, Jane's carminative balsam, Godfrey's cordial, Delby's elixir, and Quiet Baby. Now with triple morphine intensity, they were made for teething, colic, night wailing, and overall baby rebellion. You pour a spoonful, then think again. You pour two. You tip it into his shrieking mouth like you're delivering a sacred blessing. He blinks, he hiccups, he exhales, and then silence. He stares at you with the calm of a scholar who's just unlocked a secret universe. You pick him up, he waves, regally, and promptly falls asleep, mid-blink. You're not sure if he's dreaming, healing, or lightly transcending dimensions. But one thing is certain, you've achieved quiet. By the early 1900s, the headlines and heartbreak started stacking up, shocking everyone but anyone who'd actually been paying attention. Slowly regulations crept in. But for decades, a spoonful of syrup could fix anything, including your child's pesky desire to experience reality. One actual ad proudly claimed, "A quiet child is a blessing. A silent child for 12 hours. That's our product in action." Mothers swore by it. Doctors warned against it. And babies, well, they either napped like saints, or stared off like they'd just seen Queen Victoria playing cards with a walrus. Back in the nursery, your tiny angel sleeps. Face peaceful, mouth slightly open, snoring softly, like he's negotiating peace talks in his dreams. You sigh, and just as you lower yourself into a much-needed moment of rest, your chemist appears again, this time at the door. He's holding a brown glass bottle, tied with ribbon. The tag reads, "Mr. Crumb's Medicinal Cocoa, a family beverage fortified with cocaine and the spirit of discovery." You smile, because truly what better way to unwind than with a cup of cocaine hot chocolate? The first sip hits like a divine telegram. Suddenly your bloodstream is in a team meeting. Your eyelashes lift with conviction. Your heartbeat applies for overtime. You're alert, radiant, and frighteningly qualified to lead every discussion you've ever been a part of. You stand, then you stand again, just to confirm gravity knows who's in charge. You're not a person drinking cocoa, you are the cocoa. You are a cup. You're the entire experience, warm and unstoppable. Thoughts race into your mind like they're chasing deadlines. You rearrange your furniture through sheer presence. You finally understand calculus. You draft a 47-page apology to your childhood art teacher, then rescind it because actually you were right. You're incandescent, limitless, slightly worried about the vibration in your ankles. You check the clock. It's 2:03 a.m. You haven't blinked. You alphabetize your neighbors. You are, at last, relaxed. Your cocoa cup is empty. You are not sleepy. You are incandescent, possibly levitating. The candles flicker like they're whispering secrets, and you understand them better than you've ever understood your neighbors. You pace the drawing room in embroidered slippers, trailing a scent of lavender, ambition and mild instability. Somewhere, someone would call this insomnia. You call it clarity. You've entered the glorious vibrating state between exhaustion and genius. You've just finished polishing the silverware for the third time tonight, not because it was dirty, but because the universe demanded gleam. Every spoon reflects your face like a funhouse mirror, warped, brilliant, and oddly philosophical. You've alphabetized your biscuit tins, rewritten the household ledger in sonnet form, and composed an opera about domestic perfection starring a pair of unmatched candlesticks. The clock on the mantel ticks once, twice, then gives up entirely. It's 2:47 a.m. Just then, something slides through the mail slot, with a soft hiss of historical foreshadowing. A small package, wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. You stoop to pick it up. The tag reads, "F. Grimble's Invincible Hay Fever Snuff. Breathe easy. Think harder. Cough in Latin. Cocaine in honey." You blink. You smile. There is always room for a little Victorian nose powder before sunrise. Within seconds, you are in the garden, barefoot and certain. The moonlight blesses your cheeks. The ferns tremble in your presence. You are communing with a tulip, who may or may not be your spiritual guide. The daffodils nod wisely. They've seen things. You crouch beside one, eyes wide and glistening, and whisper, "I know." You don't know what you know, but you do know it. And the daffodil agrees. The paper opens with the crinkle of destiny. Inside is a small silver tin engraved with florals and the motto Respira in Pera. You pop it open and take a gentle pinch, because you are a lady, and a lady doses herself with elegance, even when self-medicating with pharmaceutical-grade chaos. You inhale deeply. The snuff rushes in like enlightenment on a warpath. It climbs up your sinuses, rings the bell tower of your brain, and unfurls a flag at the top that says, "Ideas wanted. Apply within." Every flower is too beautiful. Every petal, a revelation. You sneeze once, then again, and each explosion feels like an exorcism followed by a minor religious awakening. You wipe your eyes, not because you're crying, but because you've just become emotionally overwhelmed by the philosophical implications of dandelion fluff. You are weeping because grass makes sense. Suddenly, everything matters. The color of the sky, the tilt of a ladybug's antenna, the suspicious posture of a goose in the distance. You attempt to compose a sonnet about pollen. Midline, you're distracted by the smell of sunlight, and also the way the goose is looking at you. Judgmentally, you scowl at it. It honks, and you hiss back. Mind your own beak. You blow your nose so violently that time itself pauses, apologizes for the interruption, and resumes. The breeze tastes like memory. The stars giggle. You have taken your hay fever medicine, which is to say, you have snorted Victorian enlightenment and are now in active conversation with the metaphysical properties of chlorophyll. You try to write a letter to Queen Victoria in the dirt using a stick you found beside the roses. The stick is named Bartholomew. You know this because he told you. You begin with "Dearest Majesty," but get distracted by the scent of your own thoughts. You are not lost. You are expand. Your lungs feel like cathedrals. Your mind is a cathedral filled with screaming scholars. You are a cathedral with ideas for renovation. You are alert. You are electric. You are vibrating at a frequency previously only achieved by weather balloons and caffeinated monks. The ivy on the garden wall leans toward you, whispering gossip about the azaleas. You gasp. How scandalous. You agree with the ivy. You forgive the azaleas. You bless the goose. You absolve the grass. You are magnanimous in your magnificence. A sneeze echoes from somewhere nearby. You spin with the grace of a ballerina and the urgency of an unlicensed physician. You sprint across the lawn, handkerchief in hand, fully prepared to offer nasal first aid, emotional support, and a brief interpretive dance about respiratory liberation. You don't find the sneezer, but you do convince a confused hedgehog to reconsider its views on pine cones. You are no longer bound by mortal concepts like fatigue or bedtime. You are not tired. You are a storm in a corset. You have transcended sleep and entered the dimension of caffeinated intuition. You return indoors, trailing petals and unprovable theories. Your sinuses are singing a national anthem that hasn't been invented yet. You've ironed 6 handkerchiefs with your stare alone. You've predicted the next 3 rainstorms and a minor scandal involving someone's embroidery patterns. The air smells like possibility and possibly cinnamon. Someone might call this a reaction, a side effect, a mild psychotic break. You call it a breakthrough, a communion, a revelation through snuff. Your husband stirs in the next room. You freeze. You consider explaining what you've done, what you've become, then decide against it. He's not ready. He wouldn't understand the daffodils, not the way you do. And so you sit, still glowing, still awake, nose tingling with enlightenment. You watch the horizon like it owes you answers. This is not insomnia. This is purpose. And you are just getting started. Back in the foyer, your heartbeat has synchronized with the wallpaper pattern. Each beat is a revelation. Your nostrils hum softly like 2 well-tuned violins. You are not congested. You are a wind instrument of divine clarity. You reach once more for the tin labeled Grimble's Invincible Hay Fever Snuff. You open it like a treasure chest. It gleams like hope and reckless pharmacology. You take another pinch, this time with reverence. This is Victorian midnight. Your brain stretches open. Every thought arrives fully formed and demanding tea. You are aware of every speck of dust in the room. You know its origin, its dreams, its favorite poetry. You can hear the house settling and understand it emotionally. The powder rushes through you again, a polite avalanche of enlightenment, scraped from the wings of some Victorian angel with poor impulse control. The floral notes strike first, delicate but aggressive, like being kissed by an aggressive bouquet. Then the burn, a tingle, a shimmer, a feeling not unlike being knighted by a gust of peppermint-infused electricity. The mirror doesn't show your reflection. It shows your potential. Victorians didn't see hay fever as a seasonal inconvenience. No, they considered it a betrayal, a flaw in the character of one's sinuses, a moral failure of the nostrils. To sneeze without reason was to confess weakness. So they fought it the only way they knew how, with powdered cocaine and unblinking optimism. One tin bore the tagline, "For the gentleman who sneezes not with shame, but with purpose." The snuff industry thrived. Tins lined the shelves of pharmacies and parlor cabinets, each promising something slightly more dramatic than the last. There was Grimble's, of course, the gold standard for the genteel sufferer, but also Dr. Marlowe's nasal fortifier, which claimed to strengthen the nose's resolve, and Perry Davis's nose dust, which was either a remedy or a declaration of war against mucous membranes. Some formulas added menthol, camphor, eucalyptus, ground-up herbs, and the vague promise of self-control. Others didn't bother. Just pure, pulverized courage. Cocaine was the stuff. It didn't just clear your nose, it cleared your doubts, your hesitations, your ability to pronounce consonants quietly. You imagine yourself in a Victorian apothecary, wood-paneled walls, tinctures and bottles lining every shelf, a clerk with a handlebar mustache and too many secrets. He sees your red eyes, your trembling handkerchief, and nods solemnly. He slides you a tin across the counter. No words, just understanding. You pay in coin and desperation. They marketed these with zeal. Magazine ads, trade cards, medical journals, all filled with phrases like "restores nasal dignity" and favoured by choirs, chess clubs, and members of parliament with delicate constitutions. One newspaper from Boston in 1889 declared, "A single pinch relieves all obstruction of breath, clarifies the mind, and restores civility to the sneezing gentleman." Civility, as if decorum was trapped in your sinuses, just waiting to be released. A real ad for Dr. Gay's nasal cure boasted, "Favoured by sopranos, scientists and suspiciously energetic librarians, a nasal revelation." People took it before concert sermons, long dinners with emotionally repressed relatives. It was said to improve focus, enhance memory, and inspire ambition. Schoolboys claimed it helped them recite Latin. Housewives claimed it made them better listeners, which may have been true because their ears were ringing with the sound of overclocked neurons. Some took it before church, others before arguments. One man reportedly sniffed it before writing his entire family genealogy in reverse, from grave to cradle, while weeping at the spiritual symbolism of his own handwriting. Side effects. Of course, nosebleeds, hallucinations, an unshakable belief that you had profound opinions on doilies and that everyone needed to hear them immediately. One lady, after a week on snuff, reportedly reorganized her entire spice cabinet by emotional tone. Nutmeg was reflective, basil was morally uncertain. She didn't sleep for 4 days. One testimonial in an 1891 issue of the Cincinnati Enquirer joked, "If one cannot breathe clearly after Dr. Thornton's cocoa snuff, then perhaps one should consider breathing as optional." You laugh out loud, alone in the room, then become suddenly concerned that the laugh echoed too sharply. The curtains twitch. You blink at them until they apologize, but the relief, they swore, was worth it. The clearness, the mental lift, the sense of being fully gloriously alive, even if your nasal cavity felt like it had been scrubbed with mint and purpose. You reach again for the tin, not out of need, but ceremony. You take a lighter pinch this time, just to maintain altitude. The powder dances. Your eyelashes flutter like the wings of a caffeinated moth. You recite a poem you've never heard before and suspect you may have written in a past life. The curtains sway again. This time you forgive them. You consider your place in history, a noble sufferer of nasal distress, standing in the hallowed, powdered footsteps of countless Victorians before you. You are part of a lineage, a heritage of honking, wheezing dignity. You look around your parlor, The furniture has never looked so vibrant. The wallpaper pattern now appears to be whispering motivational quotes. The clock ticks not with time, but with encouragement. Your lungs are cathedrals. Your breath is an opera. Your soul feels lint-free. You sit down on the fainting couch, which wisely gets out of your way. The world around you sparkles like it's been recently dusted. The fireplace crackles in rhythm with your thoughts. Outside, the goose honks again. You nod to it. It nods back. You are clear. You are composed. You are the final form of respiratory evolution. You don't sneeze now. You transcend sneezing. You pre-sneeze in a state of such refined awareness that the body no longer needs to follow through. You simply acknowledge the presence of an irritant and spiritually exhale. You don't remember drinking it, truly. You recall reaching for a bottle on the tray, maybe to move it aside, maybe to admire the label. That part is fuzzy. All you know is that somewhere between sniffing nasal enlightenment and consulting with the goose again, your hands developed ambition. And this is only the beginning. Your sinuses hum. The air is yours. Mid-monologue. You are now in the park, standing atop an overturned tea crate. 12 people have gathered, uninvited, forming a soft circle of confusion around you. One is holding a bonnet like a holy relic. One is definitely weeping. A pigeon on a lamppost stares with barely concealed judgment. You are speaking, no, declaring, with a clarity that borders on spiritual intrusion. Your eyebrows are acting independently, conducting an opera. Your mouth forgot to rehearse. Your voice slices through the air like a lace-covered guillotine. Your left hand gestures with such conviction that a passing squirrel pauses, reflects on its life choices, and changes direction. Your right hand holds a parasol, like a weapon of emotional destruction. You are righteous. You are flawless. You are deeply, passionately concerned about public speaking rights, hat etiquette, and the improper use of semicolons in personal correspondence. But you know, somewhere in your soul, and now, tragically in your bloodstream, you've consumed Lady Harmon's elocution enhancer. The label had promised confidence. It had whispered courage. It had absolutely contained cocaine and consequences. You do not remember drinking the tonic. Your spine is a column of thunder. Your words have rhythm, heat, and just the right amount of passive-aggressive charm. For stage fright, hesitation, and the unfortunate habit of listening while others speak. You recall it now, in fragments. It had a soft lavender label, the kind that convinces you it's harmless. Just a dainty pick-me-up. But inside, brandy, peppermint oil, possibly fireworks. Definitely an entire symposium of powdered stimulation. You have not stopped speaking for 38 minutes. In the distance, a priest crosses himself. Someone in the crowd has taken notes. A child offers you a daisy. You bless it. A woman mouths, "Is this part of a performance?" You ignore her. You are beyond amateur classification. In the Victorian era, public speaking was not just a skill, it was an obligation. Whether you were a preacher, a politician, an aspiring poet, or a woman trying to tell a husband she needed more butter, you were expected to speak well, to project, to pronounce, to perform. You are quoting Cicero, Shakespeare, your aunt's pie recipe, all with the same gravitas. You speak of justice and meringue in one breath. You have transcended narrative. You are the story now. And this is not uncommon. And if you couldn't, you took a tonic, sold in glass bottles with names like Professor Etwill's Public Composure Solution, Dr. Beasley's Tincture of Eloquence, Miss Greta's Pre-Toast Courage Drops, Lady Violet's Diction Draft for hesitant husbands and shy debutantes. One bottle claimed it was for unsteady tone, verbal meekness, and the soul-crushing weight of eye contact. They were everywhere. Drawing rooms, lecterns, secret flasks in opera gloves. The key ingredients? Cocaine, brandy, a hint of peppermint, and a Victorian level of denial. A real testimonial published in the Cheltenham Journal. Having taken the elocution enhancer, I addressed the town council, my mother-in-law, and 2 swans. None interrupted me. I felt seen. These tonics were advertised to speakers, actors, debutantes, lawyers, governesses, anyone required to speak in public without fainting, sobbing, or retreating into a soft pile of upholstery. Others called it survival. Stage actors swore by it. They'd take a swig before curtain and stride onto stage like gods with cue cards. Clergymen used it before sermons. One vicar was said to have preached for 6 hours straight on the Book of Psalms and Victorian wallpaper glue, never repeating himself once. He later claimed to have glimpsed God, and she had strong opinions about window treatments. Some called it artificial bravery. Governesses used it too, before reciting bedtime stories with such force that children sat upright for hours, blinking in reverent terror. One governess was known to tell the tale of Cinderella with such fire that the fireplace burst into spontaneous applause. Back in the park, you reach for another sentence. There are none left. You pause. Dramatic, deliberate, devastating. The crowd exhales. The breeze stirs. You lock eyes with a man in a cravat. He flinches. You know you've won. Because this tonic doesn't end when you run out of things to say. It ends when the bottle, or the bottle's grip on your mortal soul, loosens, which it has. And still, you continue. You point skyward. Quote someone. Maybe yourself. End with a crescendo, so pure, that a nearby goose bows in respect. You take your final pose. The crowd claps. Slowly. Confused. Possibly enchanted. You step down from the tea crate. Triumph. You're not sure what just happened, but you feel lighter. Radiant. You've achieved public composure, eloquence, and the vague sensation of levitating while maintaining excellent diction. You've conquered your hesitation. You've spoken your truth. Back at home, you place the empty tonic bottle on your mantle like a trophy. Your voice is still echoing in your own ears. The air smells like peppermint, applause, and destiny. And all it took was confidence in a bottle. You've lectured a pigeon into silence. You don't remember drinking it. Truly, you recall reaching for a bottle on the tray, maybe to move it aside, maybe to admire the label. That part is fuzzy. All you know is that somewhere between sniffing nasal enlightenment and consulting with the goose again, your hands developed ambition. You are now in the park, standing atop an overturned tea crate. Mid-monologue, 12 people have gathered, uninvited, forming a soft circle of confusion around you. One is holding a bonnet, like a holy relic. One is definitely weeping. A pigeon on a lamppost stares with barely concealed judgment. Your left hand gestures with such conviction that a passing squirrel pauses, reflects on its life choices, and changes direction. Your right hand holds a parasol like a weapon of emotional destruction. You are righteous. You are flawless. You are deeply, passionately concerned about public speaking rights, hat etiquette, and the improper use of semicolons in personal correspondence. You are speaking, no, declaring, with a clarity that borders on spiritual intrusion. Your eyebrows are acting independently, conducting an opera your mouth forgot to rehearse. Your voice slices through the air like a lace-covered guillotine. Your spine is a column of thunder. Your words have rhythm, heat, and just the right amount of passive-aggressive charm. But you know, somewhere in your soul, and now, tragically in your bloodstream, you've consumed Lady Harmon's elocution enhancer. The label had promised confidence. It had whispered courage. It had absolutely contained cocaine and consequences. You do not remember drinking the tonic. You recall it now in fragments. For stage fright, hesitation, and the unfortunate habit of listening while others speak, it had a soft lavender label, the kind that convinces you it's harmless, just a dainty pick-me-up. But inside, brandy, peppermint oil, possibly fireworks, definitely an entire symposium of powdered stimulation. You have not stopped speaking for 38 minutes. In the distance, a priest crosses himself. Someone in the crowd has taken notes. A child offers you a daisy. You bless it. A woman mouths, "Is this part of a performance?" You ignore her. You are beyond amateur classification. You are quoting Cicero. Shakespeare? Your aunt's pie recipe. All with the same gravitas. You speak of justice and meringue in one breath. You have transcended narrative. You are the story now. And this is not uncommon. In the Victorian era, public speaking was not just a skill, it was an obligation. Whether you were a preacher, a politician, an aspiring poet, or a woman trying to tell her husband she needed more butter, you were expected to speak well, to project, to pronounce, to perform. You took a tonic, and if you couldn't, sold in glass bottles with names like Miss Greta's pre-toast courage drops, Professor Atwill's public composure solution, Dr. Beasley's tincture of eloquence, Lady Violet's diction draft for hesitant husbands and shy debutantes. They were everywhere. Drawing rooms, lecterns, secret flasks in opera gloves. The key ingredients: cocaine, brandy, a hint of peppermint, and a Victorian level of denial. One bottle claimed it was for unsteady tone, verbal meekness, and the soul-crushing weight of eye contact. These tonics were advertised to speakers, actors, debutantes, lawyers, governesses, anyone required to speak in public without fainting, sobbing, or retreating into a soft pile of upholstery. Having taken the elocution enhancer, I addressed the town council, my mother-in-law, and 2 swans. None interrupted me. I felt seen. A real testimonial published in the Cheltenham Journal. Some called it artificial bravery. Others called it survival. Stage actors swore by it. They'd take a swig before curtain and stride onto stage like gods with cue cards. Clergymen used it before sermons. One vicar was said to have preached for 6 hours straight on the Book of Psalms and Victorian wallpaper glue, never repeating himself once. He later claimed to have glimpsed God, and she had strong opinions about window treatments. Governesses used it too. Before reciting bedtime stories with such force that children sat upright for hours, blinking in reverent terror. One governess was known to tell the tale of Cinderella with such fire that the fireplace burst into spontaneous applause. Back in the park, you reach for another sentence. There are none left. The crowd exhales. A breeze stirs. You pause. Dramatic, deliberate, devastating. Because this tonic doesn't end when you run out of things to say. It ends when the bottle, or the bottle's grip on your mortal soul, loosens, which it hasn't, and still, you continue. You lock eyes with a man in a cravat. He flinches. You know you've won. You point skyward, quote someone. Maybe yourself. End with a crescendo so pure that a nearby goose bows in respect. You take your final pose. You're not sure what just happened, but you feel lighter, radiant. You've achieved public composure, eloquence, and the vague sensation of levitating while maintaining excellent diction. The crowd claps, slowly, confused, possibly enchanted. You step down from the tea crate, triumphant. Back at home, you place the empty tonic bottle on your mantle like a trophy. Your voice is still echoing in your own ears. The air smells like peppermint, applause, and destiny. You've spoken your truth. You've conquered your hesitation. You've lectured a pigeon into silence. You don't remember drinking it. Truly. You recall reaching for a bottle on the tray. Maybe to move it aside. Maybe to admire the label. That part is fuzzy. All you know is that somewhere between sniffing nasal enlightenment and consulting with the goose again, your hands developed ambition. And all it took was confidence in a bottle. You are now in the park, mid-monologue, standing atop an overturned tea crate. 12 people have gathered, uninvited, forming a soft circle of confusion around you. One is holding a bonnet like a holy relic. One is definitely weeping. A pigeon on a lamppost stares with barely concealed judgment. You are speaking, no, declaring with a clarity that borders on spiritual intrusion. Your eyebrows are acting independently, conducting an opera. Your mouth forgot to rehearse. Your voice slices through the air like a lace-covered guillotine. Your left hand gestures with such conviction that a passing squirrel pauses, reflects on its life choices, and changes direction. Your right hand holds a parasol like a weapon of emotional destruction. You are righteous. You are flawless. You are deeply, passionately concerned about public speaking rights, hat etiquette, and the improper use of semicolons in personal correspondence. Your spine is a column of thunder. Your words have rhythm, heat, and just the right amount of passive-aggressive charm. You do not remember drinking the tonic, but you know somewhere in your soul, and now, tragically in your bloodstream, you've consumed Lady Harmon's elocution enhancer. The label had promised confidence. It had whispered courage. It had absolutely contained cocaine and consequences. It had a soft lavender label, the kind that convinces you it's harmless. Just a dainty pick-me-up, but inside, brandy, peppermint oil, possibly fireworks, definitely an entire symposium of powdered stimulation. For stage fright, hesitation, and the unfortunate habit of listening while others speak. You recall it now, in fragments. In the distance, a priest crosses himself. You have not stopped speaking for 38 minutes. Someone in the crowd has taken notes. A child offers you a daisy. You bless it. A woman mouths, "Is this part of a performance?" You ignore her. You are beyond amateur classification. You are quoting Cicero, Shakespeare, your aunt's pie recipe, all with the same gravitas. You speak of justice and meringue in one breath. You have transcended narrative. You are the story now. In the Victorian era, public speaking was not just a skill, it was an obligation. Whether you were a preacher, a politician, an aspiring poet, or a woman trying to tell her husband she needed more butter, you were expected to speak well, to project, to pronounce, to perform. And this is not uncommon. You took a tonic, and if you couldn't, sold in glass bottles with names like Professor Atwill's Public Composure Solution, Miss Greta's Pre-Toast Courage Drops, Dr. Beasley's Tincture of Eloquence, Lady Violet's Diction Draft for Hesitant Husbands and Shy Debutantes. They were everywhere. Drawing rooms, lecterns, secret flasks in opera gloves, the key ingredients, cocaine, brandy, a hint of peppermint, and a Victorian level of denial. One bottle claimed it was for unsteady tone, verbal meekness, and the soul-crushing weight of eye contact. These tonics were advertised to speakers, actors, debutantes, lawyers, governesses, anyone required to speak in public without fainting, sobbing, or retreating into a soft pile of upholstery. Having taken the elocution enhancer, I addressed the town council, my mother-in-law, and 2 swans. None interrupted me. I felt seen. A real testimonial published in the Cheltenham Journal. Stage actors swore by it. They'd take a swig before curtain and stride onto stage like gods with cue cards. Clergymen used it before sermons. One vicar was said to have preached for 6 hours straight on the Book of Psalms and Victorian wallpaper glue, never repeating himself once. He later claimed to have glimpsed God, and she had strong opinions about window treatments. Others called it survival. Some called it artificial bravery. Governesses used it too, before reciting bedtime stories with such force that children sat upright for hours, blinking in reverent terror. One governess was known to tell the tale of Cinderella with such fire that the fireplace burst into spontaneous applause. Back in the park, you reach for another sentence. There are none left. The crowd exhales. You pause. Dramatic, deliberate, devastating. A breeze stirs, because this tonic doesn't end when you run out of things to say. It ends when the bottle, or the bottle's grip on your mortal soul, loosens, which it hasn't. You lock eyes with a man in a cravat. He flinches. You know you've won. And still, you continue. Quotes someone. Maybe yourself. You point skyward. End with a crescendo so pure that a nearby goose bows in respect. You take your final pose. The crowd claps. Slowly. Confused. Possibly enchanted. You step down from the tea crate. Triumphant. You're not sure what just happened, but you feel lighter. Radiant. You've achieved public composure, eloquence, and the vague sensation of levitating while maintaining excellent diction. Back at home, you place the empty tonic bottle on your mantle like a trophy. Your voice is still echoing in your own ears. The air smells like peppermint, applause, and destiny. You've spoken your truth. You've conquered your hesitation. You've lectured a pigeon into silence. It begins innocently enough. A bottle on a silver tray, sitting among lace doilies and soft-lit deception. Its label shimmers like promise. Pale purple. Elegant script. The kind of topography that whispers obedience. And all it took was confidence in a bottle. Madame Revington's appetite corrector. For the woman who desires less bread, more control. Cocaine-rich. Unapologetically slim. You reach for it, almost absent-mindedly, not because you're hungry, but because you might be, or you were, or someone once accused you of it. The bottle reads. You blink, your stomach growls. A small, distant protest from a body that remembers mashed potatoes. But your hand is already unscrewing the silver cap. Not just around you, within you. The hunger, once a constant static behind your ribs, falls silent like a scolded child. Your stomach stops speaking. Your thoughts sharpen. The ceiling breathes. The air contracts. You take a sip. Then the silence begins. You stare at a biscuit across the room like it insulted your great-grandmother's ankles. You whisper, "I don't need you." The biscuit crumbles under your gaze. You are no longer tempted. You are sculpted from conviction. The idea of food feels offensive, not because it's bad, but because it interrupts your focus. You have taken Madame Rivington's tonic, and now you don't eat. You do everything else, rapidly, with intention, with the sort of energy usually reserved for bees or political revolutions. You resent radishes, not because you dislike radishes. You resent food. The entire concept. Hunger is a weakness, and weakness has no seat at your dinner table, which you've now sanded, repainted, and rearranged 5 times this hour. You scrub the floorboards with a toothbrush, then polish the doorknobs until they whimper for mercy. You alphabetize your teaspoons by emotional resonance. You write control across your mirror in eyebrow pencil, underlined twice, circled once, and blessed by the virgin of self-discipline. A maid offers you a crumpet. You stare at it, then at her, slowly, carefully. You murmur, temptation is the enemy of excellence. She nods and flees. You haven't eaten in 6 hours. You also haven't blinked in 6 hours. You feel light, not delicate, dangerous, like a candle that could set a ship on fire just by existing near rope. This is not starvation. This is strategy. In the Victorian era, women were praised for being small, light, fragile, but fashionable. You were to be pale, elegant, and perpetually undernourished. Aesthetic over anatomy, a body designed to faint gracefully, but never occupy too much space. It was sold under names like Madame Rivington's appetite regulator, and so, of course, cocaine became a diet aid. Slimade elixir, the temperance tonic for waistline moderation, Dr. Beecham's feminine figure powder. One promised to elevate the will above cake. Another claimed to quell the hunger of flesh and spirit. They were advertised in elegant pamphlets, magazine spreads, and personal testimonies that sounded like poetry written by hunger. Women swore by them. Actresses, aristocrats, society wives, all searching for the holy grail of self-control disguised as a figure that fit into last season's corset. A real 1894. Take 1 dose before meals, and soon you shall want nothing at all. Not bread, not meat, not conversation. One woman reportedly took it before every social function. She was known to rearrange garden stones into philosophical shapes, and once folded an entire wardrobe into a drawer the size of a hat box. The tonic didn't just dull appetite, it killed it, then buried it under layers of productivity. You no longer wanted dinner. You wanted results. Lists, clean corners, moral clarity. You write an apology letter to your waistline for ever doubting it. You start a journal titled Rationed Grace. You embroider the phrase hunger is a choice into a handkerchief and gift it to your most emotionally unstable friend. Rapid heartbeat. Side effects included mood swings, the uncanny ability to judge people's self-worth based on how they set a dessert fork, a spiritual obsession with hat straightening. You now float through your parlor, arms outstretched like a caffeinated swan. The curtains obey you. The teacups are nervous. You've started rating guests on their ability to resist jam. You feel sharp, pure, weaponized. You're no longer hungry. You're holy. You skip lunch. You skip conversation. You whisper discipline into the ear of your houseplant. It withers. You approve. And so you dose again. Just a sip. Just enough to rise above mortal cravings. Enough to become the woman the magazines warned you about. Slim, pale, unbothered, actively vibrating. Victorian women were told to withhold, to refine, to master the art of polite suffering. And the tonic, oh the tonic, offered that on a silver spoon. Control in liquid form, glamour with side effect. Your reflection begins to disappear. Not literally, just emotionally. You can see your face, but it's thinner, smoother, hungrier perhaps, but also clearer. You admire your cheekbones. You name them victory and discipline. The tonic bottle glows faintly. You bow to it. You consider painting it, but realize the bottle is already art. You write, "No thank you" on a slice of bread and mail it to your future self. You shave a radish into paper-thin slices of regret and place them gently back in the root cellar. You've begun hosting silent dinner parties where no one eats and everyone leaves transformed. This is what it means to be refined. You are quick. You are slimmer now, in appetite, in patience, in hesitation. Alarming. You are no longer tempted. You are the temptation others fear. The kind who walks into a bakery and orders nothing, just judges the shelves. Precise. Because tomorrow, you will skip breakfast better. And just before bed, after you've cleaned the fireplace grout with a lemon slice and a sense of superiority, you dose again. One more sip, not for hunger, for legacy. Your chemist knocks on the door. 3 times, hesitantly, as if each knock might trigger something inside you to leap, to shout, to philosophize again about the moral structure of curtains. You take it before he speaks. You answer in mid-curtsy, which surprises both of you. He is pale, sweaty, his hands tremble, like old paper. He holds a bottle wrapped in velvet, as if he's delivering a weapon or worse, an apology. The label reads, Dr. Swan's Bedtime Elixir, for the chronically awake, gently laced with cocaine, laudanum, and lullabies. You nod. You understand. You are no longer just awake. You are structurally incompatible with sleep. Your brain is a lantern flickering in the attic of reality. You haven't blinked in 3 hours. You can hear spiders breathing in the wall. You folded 12 napkins into origami birds that whisper tax advice. You unscrew the cap. It is time. The scent is floral, soft, antique, haunting, like pressed violets and expired secrets. You tip it back, and the elixir takes you. Not all at once. It doesn't smash your thoughts into darkness like a hammer. No, it dissolves you gently, like sugar in warm tea. One moment you are upright, composed, and vaguely vibrating with restraint. The next, your elbows feel like pudding with ambition. Your legs unsure if they're still attached or if they've retired early with full pension. You lie down on the bed, or fall, or melt. Your body spreads across the mattress like a whispered rumor. You are draped, not positioned, a portrait of post-operatic collapse. Your spine makes no requests. Your eyelids forget how to function. You blink once every 7 minutes, and each one feels like an eclipse. You begin to float, not upward, but inward. Your breathing slows. The air around you thickens into velvet. Your thoughts become swans drifting across a foggy lake, wounded by poetry, tangled in memory. You weep briefly because you hear a clock ticking in the next room, and realize it is the bravest thing you've ever heard. The curtains sway, not from wind, but from reverence. You are becoming Victorian sleep. This is not rest. This is obliteration with good manners. The bottle promised softness, and it delivers after it politely destroys your resistance to unconsciousness with pharmaceutical elegance, laudanum, cocaine, opium tincture, chloral hydrate, each working in whispered harmony to erase your verticality. The wallpaper begins humming a lullaby. You recognize the tune. It's the same one the lavender sachets sing when no one's looking. The room recedes. You try to move. You can't. Not because you're paralyzed, because you've negotiated a ceasefire with gravity. They were designed to end you. Victorian sleep aids weren't designed to lull you. The tonics were sold under names like, not permanently of course, just for 8 to 10 blissfully unaccountable hours. They weren't about relaxation, they were about disappearance. The Night Lady's restorative, the gentle persuader for nervous wives. Madame Forsyte's Midnight Mercy, Dr. Swan's Bedtime Cordial. One 1892 article from the Illustrated Police News told the tale of a woman, long plagued by nervous wakefulness, who finally found peace after a double dose of an unnamed cordial near Piccadilly. The article noted that she was found resting most peacefully at last. The phrasing was vague, the tone deeply Victorian. They were recommended for insomnia, anxiety, hysteria, women who read after dusk, men who stared too long at wallpaper, and children who asked why too often. They came in blue glass bottles, wrapped in ribbon, placed on nightstands like offerings to Morpheus. The ingredients were not subtle. Cocaine for confidence, laudanum for sedation, alcohol for forgetting, and opium for everything else. The British Medical Journal cautioned in, of course warnings existed. Though some tinctures achieve the appearance of slumber, they may quiet more than restlessness, and must not be mistaken for safety. Or rather they read it while sipping. You roll onto your side. Slowly, like the moon tilting toward confession, you are wrapped in 5 quilts, a moral dilemma, and a rising tide of static dreams. No one read that. The bed breathes with you. Or for you. You don't know if you are dreaming, or if you've simply stopped resisting what the day demanded you become. You dream, but not of stories. You dream in colors, smells, old piano notes, and the memory of your grandmother's perfume blended with regret and powdered cinnamon. This is not a nap. This is surrender. Somewhere, in the far corner of your mind, a voice whispers a shopping list. You nod. It's probably important, even if it came wrapped in velvet danger. And for a Victorian woman, burdened with corsets, customs, tea expectations, and 400 household duties, sleep was not just welcome, it was salvation, even if it made you forget your second child's name for 3 hours. No questions. Even if it pulled your soul down through embroidered pillows and left you blinking at the idea of light like it was gossip you hadn't been told yet. This, you realize, is the deepest quiet you've ever known. No hunger, no urgency to alphabetize anything, no conversation. And somewhere near your elbow, the bottle still glows faintly. You don't reach for it. You don't need to. The ritual is done. You are part of it now. A sigh in a lace-trimmed room. An exhale tucked into a quilt. A ghost being rocked to sleep by side effects. Just stillness. You sleep. Fully. Beautifully. With consequences. Step gently. Not because the floorboards are fragile, but because the past deserves tiptoes. You've danced with hallucinations. Dosed yourself into eloquence. Fainted into floral oblivion. And now you wonder, surely that wasn't real. Let us step back now. But it was. They were not hesitant. This wasn't fiction. This wasn't metaphor. This wasn't fantasy dressed in corsets and candlelight. It was pharmacology. Powdered, bottled, inhaled, and sold with a ribbon. The Victorians were not subtle. They were not warned loudly enough. And it likely contained cocaine. They believed in medicine with force. In vigor. In cure by volume. If you were tired, anxious, hungry, afraid, shy, allergic, lonely, restless, or simply human, there was a tonic, a snuff, a cordial, a syrup, a dust, a powder, or a drop for that. It was everywhere. They used it with confidence and conviction, because the ads told them to, because the labels had lace, because the pharmacist wore a waistcoat and nodded seriously while handing you a bottle that could reboot your nervous system and make you sing Latin poetry to a chair. Not as a vice, not as a sin, but as wellness. In homes, in handbags, in church pews, in school desks, on nightstands, in glove compartments, if they'd had gloves with compartments. Elegant, and the packaging, terrifying. You could walk into a chemist and ask for a sleep aid, and the apothecary would offer you something labelled poetic. Madame Forsyte's Midnight Mercy for worries that whisper too loudly. Laced with anise and forgetting powder. Forget what? You'd never know. The labels promised peace, control, clarity, improvement, grace. They didn't list side effects. That wasn't the Victorian way. If the tonic worked, the outcome was holy. If it didn't, you were simply not pure enough of spirit. And besides, the only side effect most people noticed was a sudden enthusiasm for rearranging furniture at 3 a.m. You might not remember you asked. They snorted it for hay fever. The Victorians used cocaine, not in shame, but in cursive. It was romanticized, marketed as elegance in powdered form, a solution to everything inconvenient about being alive in a rigid society that prized silence, posture, and emotional control. They rubbed it on their gums for toothaches and social obligations. They drank it for confidence. They brushed it into their hair for shine and certainty, massaged it into their temples for melancholy. They gave it to children in lozenges, syrups, candies, because a well-behaved child was simply one whose nervous system had surrendered. They smoked it in social clubs, added it to cosmetics, because beauty should shimmer with ambition. Even skincare wasn't safe. A common complexion tonic promised clarity of skin and conscience. What was in it? Cocaine, alcohol, rosewater, and a disregard for medical oversight. And the ads. The glorious, unhinged ads. A real newspaper clipping from 1890 praised a tonic for helping a woman finally sleep, after 20 years of spirited conversation with herself. Another boasted that a single pinch of nasal powder could restore civility to the sneezing gentleman. Civility. From cocaine. One testimonial printed in the Ladies' Domestic Digest praised an appetite elixir. After just 3 days, I could resist meat, bread, and my mother's opinions. They weren't hiding it. They were bragging. There was no FDA, no ingredient list requirements, no mandated warnings. If it didn't kill you, it was fine. If it did, well, you'd die gracefully. Thin, composed, and deeply unconscious. Because the problems were real. Women were told to be thin, but nourished, beautiful, but pale, awake, but not opinionated. Men were expected to be tireless, charming, and utterly invincible to pollen. So when life didn't match the expectation, and so the tonics thrived, you took the powder, the drop, the syrup, the pinch, and became the roll. They medicated hard. Pharmaceutical companies of the time were not just selling cures, they were selling identity. You weren't just taking a tonic, you were becoming the version of yourself that society found most acceptable. The quiet one, the polite one, the eloquent one, the one who slept through the panic, the one who didn't eat, didn't interrupt, didn't age, didn't cry, until you didn't, until your nose bled, your hands shook, your sleep blurred into paralysis, your appetite shrank into disappearance, your heart raced. But you looked composed, and so the tonics kept selling. Your voice didn't stop talking, even when you did. It was an era of lace-trimmed medicine, of pharmaceutical theatre, where the illusion of control was more important than wellness, where symptoms were symptoms of personality, and could therefore be powdered into obedience. We look back now with horror, or with wonder, or both. We marvel at the labels, we laugh at the ads. But inside those velvet-lined boxes were real lives, women, men, children, all trying to hold themselves together in a society that praised composure over truth. And their tools were drugs in bottles shaped like dreams, the urge to fix what's inconvenient about our feelings. And yet, isn't there something familiar? To control energy, to shrink ourselves, to silence fear, to function at the cost of resting. Louder, perhaps, after a few drops of Dr. Swan's cordial. History doesn't whisper, it echoes, "You're rude." And now, as the last powder settles back into its tin and the candles shrink into size, we return softly to the room, where the moonlight rests on the window pane like a memory too delicate to wake. The curtains have stopped twitching. The doilies, once alive with purpose, are still. Even the goose, distant, loyal, mildly judgmental, has gone quiet. You have braved creams and tonics, bonbons and courage drops, nasal fortifiers and complexion correctors. You've whispered secrets to daffodils, given impromptu TED Talks to ducks, fasted with fury, slept like a ghost wrapped in velvet regrets. Not just the night, but the era. An era where a sneeze was scandalous, where restlessness was a medical emergency, where beauty was manufactured in bottles and self-discipline came in powdered form. You have survived, and through it all, you are glorious. But Gloria, terribly overstimulated. Because the truth is, the Victorians weren't ridiculous. Not really. They were just like us, standing in the strange hallway between expectation and reality, looking for ways to close the gap. Or sleep podcasts. They didn't have therapy, or regulated pharmaceuticals, or nutrition labels. They had lace, manners, impossible standards, and a chemist who promised silence in a bottle and poise in a powder. And they said, yeah, wouldn't anyone? Wouldn't you? Because to be alive, truly alive, in a world that asks so much and understands so little, is exhausting. And when someone offers you a fix wrapped in ribbon and clever marketing, well, you take it. You breathe it. You sip, snort, swallow, smile. You glow. You function. You endure. And sometimes you fly a little too close to the chandelier, powered by stimulants and unspoken grief. And that, too, is part of being human. We look back now and laugh at the names, the claims, the ingredients that today would come with warning labels, lawsuits, and emergency hotlines. And if you listen closely, behind the satire and spectacle, you might hear something softer. But laughter is just breath with perspective, compassion, understanding, recognition. Because deep down, those powdered pioneers, the sniffers and sippers, the dreamers and doilies, were just doing their best with what they had. They survived. And yes, their best sometimes involved putting cocaine in their skincare and opium in their bedtime tea. But also, they endured corsets and cholesterol-free gruel, emotional suppression and rigid etiquette. 1,000 social rules designed to keep them proper and quiet and small. And still, they found ways to rebel, through powdered clarity. They were not just patients. Through eloquent outbursts in the park. Through secretly rearranging their furniture at 3 a.m. while high on Victorian sleep-inducing. They were performers. Because it was easier to be medicated and composed than anxious and honest. And every tonic was a role, a mask, a temporary costume worn for the benefit of their husbands, their neighbors, their mirrors. We drink our modern tonics, caffeine and ambition, and carefully filtered selves, and we tell ourselves we're just tired, just busy, just fun. And perhaps in our own ways we do the same. But maybe the Victorian within you is still there, wearing a silk robe and judging a teacup, whispering, "Take something. Be better. Don't let them see you falter. Let it sleep." And maybe, just maybe, it's time we let that voice rest. Let it unlace the corset of performance. Let the bottles return to the vanity. Because you've done enough. You've seen the past, understood it, smiled at it, learned from it, and now you can release it. Let the powders fade into memory. And as you lie back, real or imagined, in your own bed, wrapped in the softness of knowing a little more than you did before, may you carry this strange, powdered history with you. Let the monologue end, gently, sweetly, like a candle bowing to darkness, told across time, but like a story, not like a burden. Tomorrow we'll explore another corner of the past. Equally strange, equally human. From one overstimulated soul to another, rest now. But tonight, let the chemist go home. Let the ghosts of old tonics settle beneath moonlight and floral-scented silence. Let the goose dream peacefully. You are not a diagnosis. You are not a formula to be improved. You are not a dosage. You are here, still, and that is more than enough. And now, the room is still. The goose is gone. The powders have dimmed. The wallpaper no longer whispers. Even your reflection, so recently lit with powdered eloquence and sleepless rebellion, has softened into something closer to peace. The moon has moved. The curtains have settled. You've made it. The last of the lace dreams has curled into the corner of the room, exhaling softly. You've wandered the parlors of the past. Not just through a night in the Victorian mind, but through the dust, the rituals, the snuff boxes, the tinctures, the societal performances, the velvet hysteria of an era wrapped in ruffles and chemical conviction. You've borrowed their slippers, read their prescriptions, whispered to their wallpaper, and understood their fears. And perhaps as you lay here now, real body, real breath, real softness, you feel it too, that quiet ache beneath all the powdered promises, that longing to be okay, to be enough. You've walked among their sleep aids, their appetite suppressants, their bottled bravery, their poetic addictions. You've seen how deeply they believed in performance, how willingly they traded hunger for elegance, sleep for stillness, speechlessness for tonics that could make even a whisper feel divine, to be still. But none of it made them more worthy, just more tired, more quiet in ways that cost them everything, more hidden. And if some part of you still lingers, still listening, then know this. So let this be your permission to be here, just as you are, not powdered, not perfect, not corrected, just present, drifting if you must, resting if you can. There are more stories. This corner of history is vast, beautiful, sad, hilarious, stranger than fiction, truer than memory. Stories about love wrapped in etiquette, grief tucked under lace, ambition crushed under tea service, and rebellion disguised as polite fainting. So many more, quietly. And it waits for you, just beyond the next curtain, the next bottle. So if you wish, come back. The next bedtime. It is beside us, not with urgency, not with obligation, but with the slow curiosity of someone who knows the past is not just behind us, still breathing, still waiting, still whispering, and we, you and I, will go there again, together, no rush. You'll find your seat waiting. After all, time bends for stories. It bends for voices. It bends for those willing to dream in strange directions. So when you return, we'll be here, in the lamplight, in the drawing room, in the faint scent of forgotten lavender and well-worn secrets. And if sleep comes before then, let it. You've already done the hardest thing. You've listened. Your name written on the edge of history's teacup. And now, may that listening become comfort. May the past hold you gently. May the silence be enough. And may you wake, tomorrow, next week, or in some future video. Not with answers, but with better questions. Until then, rest. Sleep well. You're safe here, inside this quiet little story.